Hi, welcome everybody to our 10th episode of the Ask Sean Show. It says I'm Sean Armstrong, but I'm actually Tristan Miller from the Climate Reality chapter here in Orange County. And we had a great idea when we met with Sean 10 months ago, almost going on a year, to have a show where we help everybody with their electrification journey. So we hope that you will invite others to the Ask Sean Show. And it's the second Monday of each month. And we're going to have a little bit of news. So make sure that you guys share where you're from and what organization you're with, or what area you're in, so we can all get to know each other, because this is one of the first live Q&A shows out there. A lot of our recordings are on YouTube from our past shows. One of my favorites is our holiday show in December. So check that out as well. And Linda's going to put that in the link in the chat, that link in the chat. And on today's episode, we are going to talk about how renters can electrify and how owners of rental properties can electrify, with one of the most amazing companies, Elevate, is joined us, and all of you can see our guests from Elevate. Angelina and Vito, if you want to raise your hands. Hi, welcome to our show. They have, in their 20 years, Elevate has electrified or retrofitted over 100,000 units. It's pretty incredible. And these are your co-hosts. Michelle, you want to say hello from our San Fernando Valley chapter? Hey, Michelle.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Ringler. I'm the Vice Chair of the San Fernando Valley chapter, and I just wanted to invite everyone to join our chapter meeting tomorrow night, where we'll hear from Jeremy Evans, who is a delegate of the Dark Sky International, and he's going to be talking about how we can help fight light pollution. So it'll be a really interesting show. Hopefully everyone can join, and I will drop a link in the chat.
We'd love to have you there. They have their meetings the second Tuesday of every month, so put it on your calendar. So why are we electrifying, Sean? What are some of the big reasons? One of the ones that you taught me is that the gas in our homes is like living with a smoker 24/7, which I had no idea. For a long time, I grew up thinking that gas was the best way to cook, and I am totally a convert to induction cooking. I love it. My kids think that I'm a better chef now. So thank you, induction cooking. And also, there's a lot of savings as well in that. And then a lot of our emissions are coming from our homes. So when we electrify, we reduce our emissions, which is better for us, better for the planet. And also, I'm sure you've seen in a lot of the news lately that gas cooking can raise the risk of childhood asthma. And so that's another reason to think about in our health. And I just saw something in a Harvard medical report that 13% of the nation's climate pollution comes from these gas burning machines. So we're kind of, running like fossil fuel plants in our home, but they're not regulated because of the EPA. You want to add anything else to that, Sean?
Yeah, I think that it's a very good point. In California, we have an equal amount of pollution coming from buildings as is coming from cars. or differently put, that's one part of it. It's like cars and buildings, the same issue. Or if you're different thinking is because of, as you were saying, Tristan, about how pollution is regulated and scrubbed out of natural gas electricity plants, even though the same amount of gas is burnt by buildings and electricity gas power plants, there's 8 times as much pollution from people's homes, because there aren't any scrubbers on any of our appliances. There's different ways of looking at it. Basically, it's a big problem and it's a dirty problem. They're the two things to take home. It's a lot and it's dirty.
And we need to talk about it, because I've been starting to talk with my friends that have gas stoves. I think that's the number one thing that we can do to look at switching out, to make that switch, is to look at our gas stove. That's one of the easier appliances, the more affordable appliances to switch out. And a lot of my girlfriends who have gas stoves, their children have asthma. So there could be a link to that. What is the number now? It's like 12.9% childhood asthma has been directly linked to gas stoves, like direct link, not from anything else. So it's something, important. We can only do what we can do, but it's an area that we can really look at in our homes. And that's why we do this show, is to help each other make that switch and to really feel good about it. And it's something that we can also talk to our other neighbors and friends, because a good idea is worth sharing. Hey, we've got some breaking news as everyone's still joining us. We're seeing a lot of people join us still. Here was a great post from Sean of last month that we are winning. The nation's capital is banning gas in new construction of 4-story buildings. Really excited about it. That's kind of my hometown, so I'm glad to see that happening. Woohoo! And we have some more news. In Oregon, they actually passed this ban. They're getting a lot of pushback from the gas industry, but a lot of people are organizing and working together, and that's you and me. That's us. We can do that. You, me, we can make a difference, and we can stand up for things that are important because it's better for our economy, our lives, our health, our community, our future, so many reasons. And at any time, Sean, if you want to jump in, locally here in Irvine, in Orange County, we made history on March 28th we're the first city in Orange County to pass a building electrification ordinance. And so a lot of work went into that. Climate Action Campaign, Sierra Club, big work on that. Reform and Sustain, Climate Reality, the council members, everybody came together on this. And we're so proud that we're joining 70 other cities across California that have passed this ban. And it's, going right back to the point where the greenhouse gases are stemming from our buildings. So we want to make this serious commitment. Now, there were a few exceptions, new commercial restaurants with traditional cooking methods that utilize open flames, multifamily housing, water heating systems that are going to expire in 1 year. And so those were some of them. And then it's going to be fully effective by June 1st. So we need to keep making sure that this ordinance stays in place. And Sean was really critical to this because he spoke to our Irvine Green Ribbon Committee and a lot of other community members about this issue, and was really key to getting that passed. So thank you. And I see several people who joined us tonight that were key to that. So thank you.
I did a little bit of work. You guys totally showed up and did all the groundwork, and I was just really proud to be able to help out a little bit. You guys deserve all the praise. That's where the activism is, actually, the community members. You guys are fantastic.
Yay. So really take that on. And it's a full circle moment because Sean and I met like a year ago, and then all of a sudden here he is helping us, get things like this passed and providing information and education. That's where it all starts. I also want to share a really fantastic quote from a longtime fan of the Sean show, Wendy, who was like on the first show. And she said, first, I want to thank you so much for doing this Ask Sean show. I started with the first one almost a year ago. I remember my head felt like it would burst with all the new information, but now it's so much clearer. I even know enough to tell other people what I know. I love this quote. And all this info has helped me feel markedly more secure, confident in getting a solar company, changing my electric box, and getting my heat pump water heater. I don't know really what I would have done without this show. So thank you. And she did get the tax rebates for the solar and electric panels. So woohoo, there's a lot of tax rebates. If you think it's a big ticket item, when you realize all the rebates, it's so much more doable. And she's looking at other rebates. And I think, Sean, she's going to be coming back to talk to us about an electric wall heater, electric stoves, so on and so forth. So we will be there every step of the way with Wendy. So thank you. And also one of our fantastic partners, the Switch is On. It's an amazing program across California that is helping contractors, residents, everybody make the switch to electrification. And they have a brand new page. Maybe Linda, you can put that in the chat for renters, the things that you can do to make the switch. And just like we talked about switching out your gas stove, switching to induction hot plate is a #1 way that you can do that. And so this is a nice renters edition just for you. And that's what we're going to be talking about, is what renters can do. And I think even if you're not a renter, it will give you lots of ideas of things you can do in your own home. So we're so excited to have Angelina here today, and I want to pass it over to Angelina, and I'm going to stop sharing so that she can introduce herself and elevate. Thank you, Angelina and Vito, for being here. And thank you, everybody, for being here too.
Woo!
Thank you, Tristan. Thank you, Sean, for the opportunity to be here this evening. We're super excited to share a case study with you this evening. And I have limited bandwidth, so I'm going to turn off my video while I share my screen, but definitely don't hesitate to ask questions after we go through this presentation. So hopefully everyone can feel free.
Yeah, it's a little glitchy, but I think we can get through it. And if at any time you guys are seeing some glitches, please just let us know in the chat. But I think we tested it before and it should all work.
Great. Wonderful. Well, again, my name is Angelina Benson-Glanz, and I'm the Principal Director of Special Projects at Elevate. I've been with Elevate for 10 years, working on affordable housing, energy efficiency, and now decarbonization projects. I also work with community-based organizations to find ways to access federal funding to decarbonize and improve their communities and climate change. So just wanted to, and again, my background's in mechanical engineering and public policies, kind of a wide variety of experience. And I'm joined tonight by my colleague Vito Greco, who's our director of solar program, and also want to give a shout out to Keith Schwartz, who's on the line as well, joining tonight, who is our associate director and engineer who worked on this project. So super excited to be here to share a case study about a small multifamily rental property that we're working to electrify. And I will say we really hope to have the upgrades completed by this evening's presentation, but we have hit a few roadblocks that have surpassed, and we'll talk about that in more detail this evening. But nonetheless, we're excited about this project. It's an innovative approach to electrify heating in a multifamily building in combination with solar. So with that, before we jump in, I just wanted to share a little bit about Elevate. So at Elevate, we believe equity must be at the center of every climate conversation because everyone should have clean, affordable heat, power, and water in their home communities, no matter who they are or where they live. As a nonprofit, we work collaboratively with communities, governments, housing providers, diverse contractors, nonprofit partners across the country to transition to a just and equitable clean energy solutions. Our programs span energy and health retrofits, solar and storage, smart grid, contractor and workforce development, and community engagement. And as Tristan mentioned earlier, over the past 20 years, we've retrofit over 100,000 units of affordable housing. So we really believe that the people and communities that are impacted by the climate crisis are the same ones that have been historically marginalized and must be at the center of the design and implementation of solutions. So on to tonight's case study, which is about a 4-unit multifamily rental building in Madison, Wisconsin. It was built in 1970, and it's what we call naturally occurring affordable housing, meaning there's no subsidies, but the rents are still affordable to a family at 80% of the area median income. So this property has in-unit furnaces, no air conditioning, centralized air conditioning. Tenants do pay electricity and natural gas. It was partially weatherized through the Weatherization Assistance Program several years ago. That was prior to our involvement. So the scope of this project, as we focus on it, includes air source heat pumps, solar PV, addressing domestic hot water, and weatherization. The total construction costs are estimated to be $161,000 at this point. We'll share a little bit more about that later in the presentation. I just wanted to say that this project really wouldn't be possible without all of our partners that are included on this slide. So digging into the details of the heating system. The current system includes 80% forced air furnaces that are at the end of their useful life. There's one furnace per rental unit no centralized air conditioning, as I mentioned. The planned upgrades are really to transition to ducted air source heat pumps, where the existing ducts are utilized with some modifications to the return ductwork, which is undersized. We really felt that it was good to use the existing duct system because it provides filtration and the ability to bring in fresh air. And of course, this is in Madison, Wisconsin, so it is cold. It's colder than where we are in California. I'm in the Bay Area. And so we really wanted to make sure there was the option to provide electric resistance backup heat in each unit, and that will be provided by a Mitsubishi Hyperheat air handler. So again, one perk of adding the heat pump is that we'll be able to provide cooling in each of the units for the tenants, which we're starting to see an increase in hotter days in Madison. So this is really, really important. And as I mentioned before, we really we wanted to include solar in this project. One thing that's very important to us at Elevate when working with affordable housing owners and tenants is to make sure that as we're electrifying, we minimize the increase in tenant bills that can occur. And so we often explore the feasibility of solar on properties. And this one was an excellent candidate. There's no cover, so we were able to install we're able to design an 18W rooftop solar system. So that will generate 2,000 kilowatt hours of annual production. We're using 450 watt PV panels. We have micro inverters for each PV, and then we're using an Iron Ridge racking system. So Vito, if you have specific questions, we'll definitely hold them for the end and we'll get Vito to chime in. But and this is a perfect candidate for solar to make sure it was included. And of course, electrical panel upgrades, almost often needed. And so in this case, we will be making upgrades to the main panel to make it a 200 panel. We have to also increase the tenant panels to support the system. So those will be 100 amp panels. And these new meters will be installed on the exterior of the building to accommodate the new systems. And here's one of the quirks that one of the roadblocks that we encounter. In Madison, if you upgrade one panel and move it to the outside, you must upgrade all panels and move it to the outside. So that's why we're, another reason we're going through this upgrade process. And it is, it is adding cost, but it's important. And I think it's just important to note too that the significant electrical upgrades occur whether we're centralizing or individually meeting the system, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. So metering, we knew that we wanted to upgrade the furnaces to heat pumps. We knew that we wanted to minimize the impact on tenant bills. So we explored two options. One was to just upgrade the furnaces to the heat pumps and see what the implication was on having the tenants pay the increased electric bill. The other option was to actually, and of course, tying in the solar to each individual meter, trying to navigate that. The other option was to have all of the heat pumps tied to a centralized meter and have the solar feed in that meter. So we outlined both of these options and looked at the financials, and the savings were about the same. So it was really just, so it was great. There was going to be some savings, about $1,600 in savings for the entire building. The savings, we modeled each individual unit as well as the common area meter. And we wanted to do this because the reality is that usage varies by unit. And so we wanted to take that into account, understanding what the usage and how the savings would materialize. So about the same request we went with individually metering the solar to the individual unit meters, or centralizing the heat pump to 1 meter and tying solar to those. But the one difference was in the project costs. So if we use a centralized common meter for the heating and the solar, the project costs were $161,000. If we individually tied the heat pumps to the individual electric meters and tied the solar in, the cost was 178, almost $179,000. So that's just one thing that's really what started to drive us in a specific direction of actually going with centralized and common meter approach. So that's the direction that we're moving forward. And we're actually able to leverage a lot of incentives and opportunities. So the project cost was $161, and we're able to leverage $132,000 in incentives and grants. And we have the full list here. But this is really one of those projects where we're braiding a ton of funding sources to make it happen, which is kind of one of our specialties at Elevate in addition to with affordable housing. But I think it's just really important to keep it in mind when making projects happen, especially in affordable housing, is understanding what are all the funding sources that are available to help minimize the cost. So a quick summary of all the benefits. So turnkey costs, as I mentioned, we're over $100,000, able to get a lot of incentives. And then we are able to actually reduce the overall operating costs by $564. You have to like chime in on some of this, but the tenants will actually see a reduction. Okay, the tenants will actually see a reduction in their costs because they're currently paying their gas rents now. Those heat pumps that will be installed will be tied to a common meter that the owner will be paying, but that meter will be offset by the solar. So they will see a significant saving per year. So when we think about resilience, because that's also extremely important, we're not only predicting the reduced operating costs, each tenant now is going to get cooling and heating, and they're not going to pay anything for it, so that's a huge benefit. We're adding the cooling per unit, and it's also, just as you were emphasizing, going to increase and improve the indoor air quality. So really significant benefits for the tenants. And then lastly, of course, with conversion to electric heating, we're able to see a 70% reduction in carbon emissions, 4 tons annually, 63 tons over 15-year lifetime of the equipment. So there's savings, there's benefits. We're excited about this project and excited about like the innovative approach to tying the heat pumps to the common area meter and tying the solar to that meter to offset costs. But as I mentioned, the project it hit some roadblocks. It slowed our process. So we worked through them, and so we want to make sure to close with there are some challenges. Again, this project's in the Wisconsin and Madison. Heat pumps are minimally considered in the local regulatory framework. There are some exceptions for load shifting for centralized heating and cooling, but there's no clear definition for what a centralized system is. In this case, we're saying 4 individual heat pumps are a centralized system. So there's been some navigation and a lot of meetings to develop a comfort level with folks around that. Electrical upgrade requirements are costly, like the city of Madison requiring all panels be upgraded. It can be difficult to size the tenant's solar when unit loads vary. And as tenants move in and out, they will vary. So it's just something to keep in mind. And then the solar connection on the model loads is new for utilities in emerging solar markets. In Wisconsin, so just kind of unique challenges. And then last, I think we're all experiencing the industry, supply chain issues, post-pandemic, or just slowing things down and increasing costs in a way that weren't anticipated. So with that,
Thank
just
you.
want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Woo!
we're here for questions.
Fantastic. Well, I will have one for Vito. I mean, how did you figure this out with since you did the solar analysis? I mean, this is very unique. How did you kind of
Well,
figure that out with tenants
I had
changing? And go ahead.
help from Keith, our engineer, who modeled this for me. So every time I would ask him to, what if we did this? He would patiently do the modeling for me. So that was nice. But what we were, like Angelina mentioned, we struggled because every unit had different usage. And if we put the same system on every unit, some would be winners and some would be losers, you know? And if that, like in one 2-bedroom apartment is a family of 5 and one is a single person, and you know, the energy use is so small with a single person that we would design a system that would be too big and they would not get all the net metering benefits because they would be oversizing the system. So we looked at that and tried to figure out, well, and then what if they move and another family of 5 moves in? Suddenly, if we tailored every system to what the current energy use is, then the next family might lose out. So we figured, well, let's try the centralized approach, and we modeled it that way. And sure enough, everyone's still saved because they no longer pay for heating or cooling. And we can still actually reduce costs for the property owner. So it was a win-win.
I mean, the cost savings are pretty strong and pretty clear. But I also think what Angelina was saying about the, you know, air quality in your own home and improving your health is something that's not always listed when we're just looking at pure profit. And also the long term, you know, in terms of over the life of that building, costs go up for energy, as we've seen where we are. My electric bill is much different. I would say getting before I got solar, it was going up 25%, 40% over a couple of years. So it's important. Sean, did you have any questions that you wanted to bring up too? I have a big one in terms of like, what if you are a renter and a couple of you in the building want your property owner to reach out to a company like Elevate? What would they do? What are some suggestions for you know, getting your building electrified if you're a renter?
I think that'd be for Angelina, right? I mean, reaching out to your landlords. I'm curious, Angelina, did your organization get a request from the tenants, or was this probably from the owner, or did you guys initiate?
Yeah. I mean, we typically work with the owners, and Alex also had the question in the chat. We work many times with nonprofit owners or owners that are really interested in keeping their rents affordable. So we don't impose restrictions. There's some programs that may have some specific restrictions about limiting the increase in rents, but we're often working with more of those mission-based or owners that really do want to provide affordable housing. But I think it is a great idea if you're in a building and you want to make this change and you have that line of communication with your landlord to start to bring it up. Landlords are always going to be concerned with dollars and cents. And so understanding if there is any kind of funding available, I think it helps come to the conversation with like, hey, did you know tax credits coming out that are going to be able to, you know, decrease costs? So things like that I think are really important. Vito, anything to add?
I think whether, you know, you're in a state where Elevate works, if not, there's other Elevates out there, and chances are you can get a free energy audit for a multifamily building, right? And there's lots of other
Hmm.
incentives for multi. So a lot of times the owners of properties may not know about this. So as a renter, you could point them to that and say, you know, you get a free energy audit. There's all these incentives out there, and that will get them thinking, you know,
I
if you
can, yeah, that's such a great tack, because sometimes we're talking to a property owner like, oh, we want you to electrify and agree to that. Well, maybe the first step is just a free energy audit to see, because how much grants did you get? It looked like it was like 100,000 something for this building alone.
Yeah, that was probably unusual. I mean, before the IRA, we were probably typically getting about 50%, depending on what state we were in. We were able to leverage 50% in different ways, but this was unusual. I would also just point out that the key pieces of the IRA aren't even in effect yet for this project, you know. So hopefully by the end of this year, like the HERA and the homes provisions will be in place at the state level. And suddenly those sorts of leverage incentives will be available to everyone.
Because we only have an hour total, we're gonna keep on moving here. But Danny, could you stick your question into the comments in the chat, and then Angelina and Vito can respond there. All right, thank you, Angelina. Great job, yay. Okay, so I'm gonna flip this perspective. This one's gonna be on if you're the renter, because as you saw, you having a relationship with the landlord and getting a landlord involved in a many hundreds of thousands of dollar project potentially is hard. So I'm going to go from more the grassroots perspective. This is Julia Butterfly. She's in the top of a tree here. She spent 2 years and she's on a solar powered cell phone there. And this was essentially a protest, kind of like a renter squatting on a property. And she succeeded in saving like 50 acres of old growth redwood forest around here by squatting up in this tree for 2 years. She's also on our logo. This little image to the left-hand side is the Redwood Energy logo. And I just want to encourage people to take personal responsibility, to put yourself out there a little bit in order to make the change happen. Maybe you can't get your landlord, but you can do some work. For example, charging your electric vehicle from a rental household can be done. So on the left-hand side, you see more of a best practice of someone actually putting a cover over the walkway when you're putting your 120 volt electric charger across. On the right-hand side, you can see someone being less best practices about it. But I see this in apartment complexes in California, tenants running their wires out their second floor window. Now, what it would look like to do it right. On the right-hand side, these are like the 3 top rated 120 volt, plug it into any outlet in your house, EV chargers. Well, they all need a grounded plug. So if you have a very old outlet, you might have only 2 prongs and it wouldn't work for an EV charger. But assuming you have a more modern 3-prong outlet, then you'd run an extension cord from the place, out your window, off the porch, wherever it is from your rental, be it multifamily or single family. And then on the bottom, you can see you put these heavy duty treads over the sidewalk to make sure that people who are riding their bicycle or things like that don't get endangered. Someone in a wheelchair can get over this. You're not creating a tripping hazard. And you tidy up after yourself. You run your car overnight. When you're done, you put your stuff away. Keeps you out of trouble. If you want to barbecue, you might be aware that a lot of rental housing doesn't allow barbecues. There's a house nearby that the vinyl siding's all melted and still melted. They never fixed it because barbecues can get out of control and produce too much heat. So a lot of rental households not allowed, Bay Area frequently not allowed because of the particulate matter that comes from it. These are all electric barbecues. And so the only smoke that comes off of it is the meat or the vegetables cooking, not charcoal briquettes, not fossil fuels of any sorts. Weber arguably makes the best one, $320. This has the highest rating. You wouldn't be surprised. Weber is a very popular barbecue. And also you find a lot of companies that specialize in nautical appliances because boats are a dangerous place to have open flames. So most boats don't have any open flames. They're all electric equipment, supplies, etc. Also because if you have like open flame combustion inside those little tiny ports where people are holding out against bad weather, you can die of carbon monoxide poisoning, a common problem among people in boats. It's like they have a little charcoal brazier or something. They're trying to stay warm inside the little, very tiny airspace. It's a way to die. So all these can be plugged into your outlets, just 120 volt. If you'd like to have a fireplace, this is my house here. I'm standing right where this fireplace is, and this is my then 6-year-old daughter just loving this thing. It's from Dimplex. The brand within Dimplex, which makes a lot of electric fireplaces, is Optimist. So it's a theater effect where you have an ultrasound element that vibrates water and makes mist, and then you light it. This is like old school theater effects, but they've made it so that it works for like standard replacement fireplaces. You can put them into, you know, if you have an old fireplace in your old house that you're renting, like my brother does, that'd be a place where you could put one of these 120 volt, plug it in anywhere, mist fireplaces that look so much like a real fire. You can't believe you're not burning your hand. So here's some cassettes versions of them. Another company called A Firewater makes them, but they're kind of more high end for rental housing, saying this is something that comes in the mail. You plug it in and you can put decorative bricks around it if you want, or fire, you know, rocks or whatever, make it look cool. And it's perfectly safe to have next to the Christmas tree or on the table at a party or things like that. You can make it really fun. Now, understanding that you're a tenant from this perspective, if you're trying to create a more comfortable house, like many of my staff are tenants. I'm one of the only ones who owns, and even this house I built as a rental house. It's a tiny house, but I live in it. And so all of us are very comfortable with this idea that we have limited options. This is the highest performance, best do-it-yourself heat pump. Now, there's a couple other brands that print this. Medea is the original manufacturer, but I think another one called, Toshiba puts out, essentially use the same language. It's like the 14,000 BTU inverter, ultra quiet. Inverter, ultra quiet are the key words when you're Googling this thing. So this is a portable heat pump, and with an inverter means it's quieter and more efficient. It might be up to 40% more efficient. It has solved a little bit classic problem with do-it-yourself install heat pumps, which is that they usually have one hose or two hoses. This has a hose within a hose, and it allows you to do both slider windows and up and down sash windows. It has a kit to fit those. Oh, here comes Joel. Joel, welcome, Joel. So this would be an example. It's $700, but it puts out a ton of heating and cooling, a ton being 12,000 BTUs per hour. And that goes back when ice was how things were cooled, and you'd have literally tons of ice, and they use this metric of how much cooling a ton of ice does in an hour. So they're called 1 ton, or you can also call it 12,000 BTUs per hour under this SACC testing regimen, which is more accurate. In this, usually a heat pump, 1 ton, if you install it as a ductless mini split, is about $4,500. If you install it as a ducted heat pump, it's about $5,000, and you usually install at least 2 tons to 4 tons in a house of a ducted heat pump system. So you can imagine you're heating and cooling a house with 1 ton here, $700 or $4,500 to $5,000 per ton. This is not as efficient. This could be noisier, but this is a way to electrify your gas wall heater in your apartment. Stop using the gas wall heaters, try to shut it off. Ideally turn it off because they still leak gas into your apartment, but one way or another. Then my partner, his nice house, his ground source heat pump broke because of a power surge, and for 1.5 years, he heated his house with this. And he said it was quieter than the ducted system because the ducted system makes such noise and it blows air. So you can do it. It was his 1,500 square foot house. He got 2 of these and kept his house warm. Now, at the beginning of the presentation, Tristan was talking about, in the news recently, people have been finally acknowledging how dangerous cigarettes are. So the one on top, gas stove dangers, well known since 1839. Industry acknowledged in 1907. In 1970, they started creating test homes and documenting how toxic gas stoves were, and they hid the data. They hid it. It just came out this year from some obscure library in Indiana, but in 1972, they published a bunch of data in a draft document that never got to the final. And they'd show them for everyone to see that gas stoves in 1972 were toxic with nitrogen dioxide, which is the principal component of smog. And so science times here. On the left-hand side, this is Becca, one of my staff, with her gas stove. And this is not a campfire. This is just a normal little gas stove that's burning, and the red hotness is the heat. So everything that you can see as a cloud around her is smoke that is generally invisible to you, just the way when a gas car is running and it gets going, you no longer see the smoke coming out of it. But you know it's smoke, right? You don't stick your face in it. You don't run that into your house, into your bedrooms. But you are running one of these into your bedrooms. And this amount of smoke that you're producing is not some small amount. A 6,000 BTU burner, 1 BTU is a matchstick burnt from end to end, completely burnt. That amount of smoke, which is just invisible, not gone. It's just not visible because there's very little PM 2.5, not none, just not much visible. That stuff is like burning a pack of cigarettes, essentially, every time you cook for 15 to 20 minutes. On the right-hand side, you can see this is data that our government, California Air Resources Board, huge amount of work that they did to show. On the right-hand side, the dotted line is the federal standard. There's no place in our country that is outside of federal standards. Every place is compliant with nitrogen dioxide pollution, the power plants and such. Not necessarily our highways. On the left-hand side, you can see cooking a dish on electric. That's just the grease that's cooking. You get some smoke off of cooking food, right? But as you go up, adding gas, just one dish usually gets you above the federal maximum for outside dirty air, and you're making smog in your kitchen. You can't see it, but it's there. That's why, 13% of all asthma in the United States is because of gas stoves, and it increases your chances of getting asthma by 42%, and increases your use of heart attack medication and lung disease medication because it just stresses your cardiovascular system. So if you want to deal with this issue, here is your cheap solution. On the upper right-hand side, this is if you're going to spend a little bit of money, you get a nice one that's a single burner, and like Volrath, that's fancy brand. You might spend $300 or $400 on a nice induction burner, a single one. But generally people get two, like the Eurodib, which is the nicest of them, of the two burners. I've tested tons of them, so I'm just saying that's my opinion. New Wave is good, Duxtop is good, and Ducto is good. These are all fine. None of them are as nice as having a full-blown $2,000 stove. But as a renter, you don't get to yank your gas stove out and put in a 240-volt electrical line to the back where the gas stove is. So instead, you just turn off the gas valve to the stove in the back, turn it off, stop leaking gas into your house because gas stoves leak gas, dangerous benzene is in that, and just put these on a countertop next to it, or actually just put them on the gas stove. That works just fine. So that's how I cook. Over here, I'll turn off my blur if I can. Where's my video? Okay, so this is my tiny house. See, that's me. This is me cooking. I'll heat my hot cocoa back up. And this is how I cook for 3 kids and myself in my tiny house. Totally works. I cook things from scratch because we're a farm. So 1 second here, I'll blur my video again because I get embarrassed otherwise. Okay. Blur. There we go. So this is how you do it. This is the oven. These can cook turkeys. All 3 of these are turkey sized. So if you have like a medium sized turkey, not a 30-pound turkey, but a 10, 15-pound turkey, yeah. Oster, I think, is the best brand. Other people agree on Amazon and such, but the Glanz is a little bit bigger, and it doesn't have as good of controls. It's not exact as temperatures as the Oster, which is like a little bit better about what exact temperature you want. Similarly, the AO Bosi, this is fine. These are good. Oster is still my favorite, but these other ones are a little bit bigger, and they're 120 volt, plug it into anywhere. So just briefly, the quick story is that when my mother-in-law died in the Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa in 2017, we had not yet replaced our gas stove, and Nan had actually helped us get this antique gas stove into our house. But when she died in the Tubbs fire, which was a climate change induced fire, and it's the beginning of what we now call fire season in California, that was profoundly traumatic for our whole family. And we got rid of that gas stove immediately. And this is what we've been baking on and cooking on ever since. We never actually did get it together to buy a big expensive 4 or 5 burner induction range and oven. We've just been using these, and we cook and bake, and we're very productive in the food category. Here is your solution for if you're a renter, how do you get a washer and dryer into your place that's not a gas dryer? And this is my brother's rental, and this is in the garage of the rental house. And he just got this in the mail. It's the one I have also in my house, the LG, which is the biggest one on the right-hand side there. It's 4.5 cubic feet. I just did laundry a couple times today in it. It's great. It washes and it dries. The whole rest of the world does their laundry this way. All over Europe, you're going to find that people have washer dryers because their old apartments didn't even get built with washers and dryers in mind. And so if you want the luxury of not going to a laundromat, this is how you do it. They're ventless. You don't have to cut a hole in the wall. So water comes into it and water comes back out into the same sink. So you just sort of roll this thing up to a sink of wherever it is, if utility sink, if you got a garage. Yes, here's my house with my stove looking a little more tidy. Don't have any dishes on it. Electric space heater. That's my 2-gallon electric resistance water heater, the stove, and the oven. And this is plugged into our machine shop, and it's just 30 amps at 240 volts. So this was our rental for about 6 years until I got divorced to move into the rental house. So we can all sort of stay in the family compound. My mom also lives here in a different rental house. We don't charge a rent, of course. So anyway, this is a rental house built specifically for renting, or for me. And this is what very minimal power demand. Okay, the last part of this was Inflation Reduction Act incentives. These are rebates, point of sale rebates. If you convince your landlord to do this with you, they can put, if you're a low or moderate income household, you get $8,000 for the heating and space cooling system, the heat pump for HVAC, $1,750 for the water heater, $840 for a clothes dryer if it's heat pump, $840 for an electric resistance or induction stove, $4,000 for wiring, or sorry, $4,000 for the panel, $2,500 for wiring, $1,600 for like air tightening and sealing and things. So, and the whole building can qualify even if only half the apartment is low or moderate income. And these incentives, the numbers I just listed, those are for 80% and below area median income, 50% or more of the building. And if you are above 80% to 150% AMI, which is everyone who rents, then it's 50% off. So it's not $8,000, it's $4,000. These are point of sale rebates. That means the contractor shows on the receipt that they got the rebate and they discount your price. These are tax credits. Tax credits for a property that you own. So this is a landlord that can go through, and each year they can spend up to $3,200 that they can get tax credit rebated. It's different. It's available for everyone. It doesn't matter what your income is, and therefore it's less money. This is like Joe Manchin, as part of the compromise, Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, is that the big chunk of money goes to low, moderate income. Smaller amounts of money goes to everybody through tax credits. And these are the tax credits for solar, which are 30% for everybody and up to 50% for apartment complexes where the solar serves the tenants. 60% of the solar panels are made in the United States, but 50%, pretty much everybody. If you're low income, that's 40%. If it's low income and it's going to the tenants, it's 50% off for the solar array. So those are the 3 big chunks that most renters would take advantage of. There's money for HUD, there's money for tribes, there's other, that's not really the point of the presentation. So instead, I wanted to get to the questions part of this, where you guys are like, hey, let's chat about your sitch. So this is Julia Butterfly, who I want to bring back up as like an inspiration for you to take personal responsibility, put yourself out there, do a little bit of hard work to make the world a better place, because it's remarkably inspiring. Even decades later, it can still inspire people. The things that you do have effects that you don't see. So that's my little spiel. Holly, you want to know, is the Hera available now in California? No, but it'll be available, they think, by Q4, the last 3 months of this year, or maybe the very beginning of next year. The Energy Commission has hired more than 200 people. They had 600, they're up to like 800, 900. Just to deal with the Inflation Reduction Act. So they're like a bunch of monkeys over there just running around, trying to figure out what to do. So that's the tax credits, Kate, costs? Kate, you asked, are the tax credits refundable? Well, I'll say first, the tax credits are available this year. Are they refundable? Like, can you get cash back from them? I think that's what you mean. And for the tax credits, this one, the solar tax credit, that can get cashed out to a nonprofit. And so some nonprofits can now approach apartment complex owners and say, hey, with the SOMA rebates in California and with the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits, we could completely solarize the tenants. Sunrun just met with me last week and we approved that for Mutual Housing California's low-income tenants, farm workers and such, the nonprofit. And this is how they're going to get free solar. So the tenants get a zero net energy solar rate to them through the combination of SOMA funds and this tax credit. But the nonprofit is the one that gets the cash out. This tax credit, I don't believe has a cash out option. I think you have to have actual tax debt in order to use this tax credit. Leslie, you pointed out that you put a Whirlpool washer and dryer in a rental unit. So like the combination condensing washer dryer, purchased at Costco, 2-year warranty. You go, Leslie. Patty O, your point that many overseas still air dry. Yeah, the most I've seen in any other country is about 45 to 55% of their laundry is machine dried. In America, it's 80%. And in Italy, it's as little as 5%. They take care of their clothes there. Yeah, so Americans are weird. We use those electric resistance exhaust only dryers. The rest of the world uses condensing dryers, and if they do it at all. Rochelle, you said you have a great silicon mat that covers my cooktop. Do you mean like you used to have a gas cooktop and now you've got a mat there that covers it to put induction on top of it? I'm curious. Oh, and Joel, this is good. I'm glad you're bringing up this portable heat pumps thing. Rochelle, you can put your answer down below and I'll try to catch it there. You are saying portable heat pumps will probably qualify, but my understanding is that we're still waiting for guidance from the government since there aren't clear efficiency requirements, and thus there aren't clear metrics for meeting them yet. That's coming. Thank you, Joel, for bringing that up, because your organization, you led the charge in getting all these electrification incentives. And this is even your slide deck, by the way. This slide you're looking at, this is Rewiring America slides, because you guys did a terrific job of presenting. So I screen capture, I'm like, these are great. So I hope, Joel, that if to the degree that you can, you advocate for these efficiency standards for the small apartment scale heat pumps, because I know they're thinking about ducted heat pumps for people's houses, but what about the do-it-yourself heat pumps? What about like the small stuff that is legitimately a fast electrification solution at like 1/10 the cost or 1/8 of the cost? This would be so cool if we could get incentives that help people who are really poor, because these are sold like crazy. These are sold like 4 times as much. Portable heat pumps are sold every year than ducted heat pumps. This is the 80% of the market basically is portable air conditioners and heat pumps. They're sold in America. And it's this hidden thing that this is the market. It's just the poor people that are doing it, so we don't pay attention. Thanks, Joel. I see you're saying, I think it's coming and they will be included. You're right. There's no Energy Star category for portables, which is on Energy Star. Like, what have they been doing, huh? Sitting on their hands all this time. It's a real product. And Rochelle, okay, I'm going to share what you shared with us. Thank you. Second here. New share is what I'm trying to do. New share, there, and there. Oh, cool. So y'all checking this out? An oversized silicon mat for crafts. And you put this down on like a gas top stove to make it flat and smooth and nice looking. And then you put your induction range on top. Brilliant. And that way you can use your ventilation. Okay, nice. Okay, so then Vito, you wanted to add that direct pay for the clean energy credits, 48 and 25D, is available for churches and other nonprofits. Yes, churches especially. They will actually get a check for the percentage of qualified installation costs after the system is energized. Yeah, that money cash out is beautiful. And Kelly Linden wants to ask, did you say 25C, 25D tax credits are available to the property owners for rentals? So if I go back to that tax credit, 25, this is not it, sorry. 25C, you want to know, Kelly, is this available for property owners for renters? This guidance from the IRS regarding tax credits says, the credits are never available when the improvements are made to homes not used by a residence by a taxpayer. Oh, well, you're absolutely right, Kelly. I'm wrong. I didn't realize that. I hadn't read that far into it. So that sucks. These tax credits are only available to owner-occupied homes. Thanks for correcting me. John Foster, you say, we'll get off of it and some people don't look at it. For heating, you say, for heating with portables, are there any performance standards or third-party testing at all? I've looked, have not found any. Well, when you go to the portable heat pump, this SAC standard, like this 14,000 BTUs doesn't take into account for the amount of leaked air that's being pulled back out by this dual hose system, this one being a best case scenario. So the SAC, I believe, is a new testing standard that's de-rating appropriately. And I don't know if that qualifies as an answer for you. I know that they're trying to reform these by at least giving them a more accurate standard, but I can tell you that we, Redwood Energy, are a third party, and we've bought like 5 of these and tested them for a cold season to see which ones could handle freezing, which ones could handle dehumidification, because like this one doesn't create a whole lot of condensate because it has a balanced ventilation system. Some of them suck or blow or whatever, but they create a whole bunch of wetness. And so you have to constantly replace the bucket on them, because these, by the way, will do some condensate, and therefore you're gonna have to empty out some container. None of them yet have a condensate evaporator, which is a higher quality system that EFOCA has, evaporates condensate. So that's the answer. Is I don't know exactly, but I would love to find out more about the SAC standard because I see that. Okay, thanks, John. You look it up. Tom, you wanted to write in, hey, Sophia, my LG combination ventless washer dryer, same as Sean's, same as my brother's, same as Steve Schmidt and Lisa Schmidt, who were the ones who said, you should do it, Sean, because they got a good one. It does emit a little bit of moist vapor into the room out the back. Most of the clothes moisture is condensed in the liquid water and pumped down the washer standpipe. So one of the things you learn about condensing washer dryers is that if you want your laundry dry, you have to do below the line because they tell you. And if you do more, it comes out a little moist. If you do what they say, it works. But if you don't, then it makes, and what Tom's speaking to is that it does make some moisture in the room. Although not much. I haven't seen it be an issue. Trying to get to Glenn Garfunkel, you wanted to know, does ground source heat pumps make sense for the Bay Area, suburban single-family homes, typical modest property square footage? If so, what are the basics and cost of ground piping add-on, the square footage and the depth? Okay, so let's assume that you were going to do it for a moment. If you're going to do it, it's like a 5 or 6 foot square of space, and you do a drill straight down. So you have a vertical bore, and they make a very dense area that they do a drill in. Okay, how much does it cost? A specialized drilling rig like that is going to cost about $20,000 to $30,000 to install that field. There's not very many drilling rigs that do it, so you have to also schedule because they have to come from different parts of California to do the drilling. Does it make sense? Would you want to do it? Well, my partner did it back in 2001 because there wasn't a good air source heat pump for our climate at the time. Today, an air source heat pump would cost, okay, so let's say you put $20,000 into drilling, the very lowest possible price. I think that 30 is a more likely number. And then you add in a $5,000 ground source heat pump, and then you will duct it But is that a separate cost? It's like $10,000 to $15,000 worth of duct work. So let's assume that the $10,000 to $15,000 of duct work is always there because you're going to do a ducted air source heat pump, which you could do cheaper with the ductless, but ducted is more expensive. But if you're going to do that, okay, now you've got a heat pump there, the ground source. It's the same thing as an air source heat pump. It just doesn't have a fan. But everything else, the compressor, condenser stuff, the pumps, it's all the same stuff. It looks almost the same in a box. It just doesn't have a big fan to collect air. Instead, it's got a pump that goes down and does the water stuff. And then you have a $30,000 drilling rig. So if you just get an air source heat pump or a ground source heat pump, those are about the same price. And they do about the same efficiency in the winter if you get a good air source heat pump. So a ground source heat pump will be more efficient unless you get a good air source heat pump, and then it isn't in the Bay Area. It is in Ontario. It is in Alaska, but it's not in California, not certainly on coastal. So I think that it adds about $30,000 to your installation to go to a ground source heat pump without any significant energy efficiency gain. Is my best guess of that.
And we're at 6:30, everybody, but we'd like to take another question. And one thing I want to put out there with electrification is to start looking at it now, because you don't want to find that your water heater breaks and you're reaching out to contractors and they're saying, oh, the only thing you can get is gas powered. So please start thinking about it now. And Sean, maybe if I can share my screen, we are looking for people for case studies every month. We really have helped a lot of people, as you saw at the top of the show. And we don't need a lot of information. We need about 5-6 things. And if you're just interested in electrifying one aspect of your home, that's okay. We also like to get your electric bill, some of that information, so we can see your load and what you're doing. And we put in the chat Sean's and Redwood Energy's very own pocket guide. Even though this is for single family homes, there's a lot of great tips in there, right, Sean, for renters.
Yeah.
What we talked about tonight is there.
Well, it was for retrofits, and I really wanted to make it for apartments, but we never got funding to how do you retrofit apartments. We have one for single family construction and one for commercial construction that are retrofit specific. So the single family one, I think, is the one that you want if you are a renter. If you are a developer owner, we have a book on commercial building, and multifamily apartments are commercial buildings. So you can find the developer landlord perspective from the commercial retrofit guide and the tenant perspective, which was tonight's focus on the single family side. Yes, so this booklet would be for you if you're that person.
And if
Sean, several people asked that couldn't be here tonight where the recording would be. And I know you put them up on your YouTube site, Redwood Energy site, right? And then we're putting them up also on Climate Reality OC's.
We just put them on Climate Reality right now.
Okay.
I have a few of them that I've put up on Redwood Energy's site, but not all of them.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
But we'll share those links. If you want to also put Redwood Energy's website up there, Linda, that would be great, because for commercial.
Our YouTube site, it's pretty simple too.
Yeah, we'll put those in. And as we mentioned, Rewiring America is an incredible organization. They have an IRA calculator, which I put in the chat. And, you can kind of get some of your info in there and get a better sense of what you could get back. And when does the IRA start taking effect? Is it the last quarter of this year that you...
All of the Inflation Reduction Act is now legally enforced. So all the tax credits, all the rebates are sort of legally available, but they're not actually here. So tax credits are here. You can work with your accountant, take the tax credits now. But the rebates, they're having to go first from, Congress, then approves it. Now it's gone to like the Secretary of Energy or the IRS, and they have to then issue rules and a request for proposals for the rebates. The request for proposal goes to all the states, all 50 then put in a proposal for how they would spend these electrification rebates. And if they're compliant, then the money goes to them. And so it's just like multi-step process for the cash rebates that is not the same for the IRS tax credits. And then the cash rebates are slow. Those are coming out at the end of the year. The tax,
hey everybody,
IRS,
I'd like to tell you a little story.
This is going to be about the electric revolution, starting with Reagan and going to Elon Musk. Someone's got that going.
Can we also,
Reagan
before we leave,
adopted-
take a screenshot?
It's someone, I think, is playing like a video of mine on,
Oh,
who needs to mute themselves, I think.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm looking.
Okay, that worked. No worries.
We got it. We got it. We got it.
All right.
And so this is also in the chat. Please, join us in May. Our next show is May 8th, and I'll be there. Sean will be there. We're going to also be highlighting gas stoves again and having Nathan Taft from Stand Earth join us for a little bit and a couple of case studies. So we want you back. And if your chapter, your group, or your city or your state, you'd like us to do a special show and co-host with us, like Angelina did tonight, we would love you to do that. And Angelina and Vito, if you want to put your contact, details or your website in the chat, because I think you never know when you're going to come across somebody who needs to connect with Elevate Redwood Energy or us. And, we want to second the fact that getting involved really does make a difference. I've made some of the best friends of my lives being involved. It's free. You don't have to have experience. You learn what's going on. You're connected to your community. You make change happen. And we're at a critical point, in our history that if we can make the transition to clean energy now, it's going to be so great for all of us. So much more affordable, so much healthier. It's really, really important. So we hope that all of you will think about getting involved in some way and connecting with a local chapter or local group. There's so many fun ways to do it. And we hope you'll register. Any last photo questions?
Can we-
before go?
yeah.
Shall we all smile, turn on
Can
your
we-
camera?
If
Can
the
we
San
do it?
Fernando Valley chapter is having a chapter meeting tomorrow night at 7:00, and we are talking about dark skies. So if you've ever been interested in the bills or the ordinances of how to reduce light pollution so that we can appreciate our stars in the sky again, please join us tomorrow night. I put the information in the chat.
Can we do a quick
Oh.
screenshot?
Okay.
If everybody turn your videos on.
Everybody? Okay. That's a lot.
Well, if you will, if you want. Okay. 1,
Oh,
2,
this
3.
is a good looking group.
Yeah, okay, let's do one more. 1, 2, 3.
It's so
Okay.
good to see everybody.
All right. I'm going to go take my son out for dinner.
Everybody,
Take care,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
See you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you guys.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll see you
Thank you for
soon.
coming.
Thank you. Tomorrow night. Bye,
you.
Angelina.
Thanks,
Bye.
Trisha.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.